So I would categorize this subject not different from most of the subjects that we have here on In Your Ear Radio with your host Latoya as a pretty thought provoking and undeniably controversial topic. And and if any white person tells you that this is race baiting to even have this conversation, or it's a divisive discussion, feel free to remind them that it was their ancestors who invented race. Nonetheless, in these times where allyship, trust, and numbers matter even more, I ask those of you who are still optimistic that they can change the minds of the undoctrinated or the indoctrinated. If those that they seek to recruit are committed to a lifelong active practice of leveraging one's own privilege and power to support, amplify, and advocate for marginalized groups. Are they or not? Let's talk about it. I know, I know. That's no way to start a show. So I'm going to start over. And y'all know I will be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya, as always. It is my pleasure to be present with you on a beautiful Saturday. What's the weather like today? Listen, we out here in shorts and sandals, okay? If you in Las Vegas, you living your best life right now. This weather is lovely. We're definitely knocking on spring. Let me see what the weather's like. I know it's probably got to be at least in the high 70s, but I'm not quite sure. And I'm not finding my weather, but it's nice. It's really nice out here. So for those of you guys who are out here on the West Coast enjoying some good weather, lucky you. 87 degrees. Ooh, all right. It's almost 90 degrees. Yeah, I got an email last week warning about a heat wave. So I was like, really? What do they consider a heat wave? For us, a heat wave is probably 105 or up. So I was like, maybe they got the wrong city, but I guess that would be considered a heat wave here while we're not. Are we in spring yet? I think we're still, I don't know. Have we got out of fall? I don't remember when spring started. Y'all can let me know in the chat. I can't keep up. Everything just goes too fast. Everything moves super fast. But shout out to everyone who's joining me in the chat. Yes, 87 degrees. Shout out to Pieces of She who's joining me live in the chat and everyone else on Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate you all. We're going to get into this topic. We left off on it last week, kind of touched on it a little bit, and I probably won't get too deep into it this week, but I just wanted to, leave a little food for thought, something for us to think about and consider, and just, ponder the reality of who our allies may or may not be and why that would be the case. I definitely want to get into that. And a lot of things have led me up to even thinking about this subject matter even more and more when I think about myself as a Black woman and my experiences with white women and the history of experiences with white women being allies to Black women. So it's an interesting subject matter. I think it's worth the discussion. I think it will bring some better understanding and hopefully open the eyes to those who may consider themselves allies to those who are considered marginalized here in the United States, at least. What if they really are, if they truly are in their heart, are they, are they really, really loyal to this game? Because it definitely is a game. I definitely compare what we're experiencing now to chess, even though I have not learned how to play it yet. I do think that chess, as far as the strategy and just the different characters in the game of chess. If you think about the pawn, you think about the queen, the king, you have who am I missing? The duchess, and there's one more, pawn, king, queen, duchess. and one more, it'll come to me in a minute. They all have a role to play. And they all, to me, when I think about chess, all fall in line under what seems to be a dictatorship without knowing the history of chess in particular, just their roles. The king, I understand the king just being the one that they are trying to protect. You cannot ever capture the king in the game of chess. You can only put him in check, like, Buster Rhymes, Ruha, I got you all in check, like that. But in the meantime, there are people set like the bishop are also put in place to protect him. But the thing I found interesting about the king, because they can all move certain ways. They have different limitations, these different pieces in the game of chess. And the king in particular has his restrictions as well, but he can move anywhere in any direction. So the pawn, the bishop, the knight, the rook, even the queen, they can only move in certain positions, but the king can move either way, anyway, only one square at a time. But I just thought that was interesting. And that's how I kind of learn. I have to figure out what the strategy is, what the purpose and the reasoning is behind it. And then I think about where we are today in our leadership role with a person who wants to be a king, said he wants to be dictator for a day, and has been running this country as if he's a king, definitely not under a democracy, and is moving in a way that shows that he can move any way he wants. He can go any direction he wants, and who's gonna check him, boo? And so I kind of related to that. But other things that I've been watching are kind of also relatable in the real world that we live in today. Have you guys watched the series Paradise? That comes out on Hulu. Season 2 just came out, so I think we're on I think there's only 8 episodes, so we finished it. I gotta go watch episode 8 again because I'll be dozing off. I'll be dozing off when I'm watching things. But if you watch Paradise, you'll get some understanding of what we're experiencing here today in this world. Very good, very, very good. Yes, very good, isn't it? And it even highlights some of the things that are important to society, right? If the world goes under, and in this case, the world did go underground, literally. That's where Paradise resides because Earth was contaminated, the atmosphere was contaminated. And so they had already planned for this and built for it, but they were strategic in who could come. So it wasn't a humanity thing. It's based on what you can bring to the table. So you had to have a certain skill set, like be a doctor, maybe be a engineer, a builder, different things that were important to the infrastructure. Not necessarily if you were a good or bad person. I don't know if your criminal history was a factor because I never heard anything about anybody's criminal history per se, but it's interesting watching that. And then also, I finished the book as part of the book club that I'm in. I told y'all they let me pick the book this time. I've been in this book club for like 2 years and I never had the opportunity to pick a book. So this was my opportunity and they let me have my way because I protested. So y'all, I just want y'all to know, speaking up, speaking out, and protesting does work. It is effective. It took me 2 years to get my book in there, but it happened. Shout out to the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay. But anyways, yeah. So the book is called A Sky Full of Elephants. I want to say his name is Acebo. What is his name? Great author, Black author, awesome read. And I've been accused of telling more of the story than I should. But you know what? When I watch these movie trailers, they might as well show the whole movie too. All you don't see is, I don't know. Y'all watch these movie trailers, it might as well be the whole movie. I'm sorry, because they are long. I think a movie trailer should not be more than a minute, 30 seconds maybe. Give me an idea of what it's about. Don't just play the whole movie, But Sky Full of Elephants the book starts off where all of the white people in the United States walk into the water and drown and kill themselves. So it starts off that there are no white people, no more white people, Sky Full of Elephants. And I'm getting the author for you. And if that isn't intriguing in itself, I was like, this is quite intriguing. But the story, it's what people are, the Black people, because it's only Black people. It's only Black people that are left. And just to see the interaction, the way that they survive and maintain, and there's a structure and hierarchy. And I mean, it was a peaceful read. I'll say that. It was a very peaceful read. And I encourage you all to check the book out because no matter what your race is, no matter what you claim, what set you claim, or whatever it may be, it's just a good book. But it gives you a perspective too of the world that we live in today, because, when you think about what we're experiencing, a lot, if not mostly everything that we're experiencing, is a derivative of racism. Race is the derivative of people who came and stole and took and claim things as their own, and then program to condition people to think a certain way. So all, even the good the negative things that we experience, I'll focus on that mainly because the negative things is what's tearing us apart, right? But all of the negative things that we've experienced, if you start the story from the beginning, which is what society, those powers that be, do not want you to do, then you will understand exactly. The reality is that we're here because of the great invention of race and racism, and just having people thinking that they have privilege, or some people just being given the privilege over other people. So the book is Sky Full of Elephants. I strongly encourage you to read it. That's all I'm going to give you, because I'll end up telling the book, I think. And the author is Sibo Campbell. So I encourage you to read that. All right, GB, I see you in the chat. Thank you for joining me as well. Yes, everybody remember to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it if you enjoy it as well. I appreciate you for it. Thank you so much. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been, reading, watching, and it's all relative to present day. So I just wanted to speak on that. But I want to get into this more. So last week I was just thinking, when I was thinking about this whole Target boycott, what do we call it? Jamal Bryant called it a fast. I was thinking about, the women who started it, which we know as Black women. When we think about, other things that have been put into effect to liberate the people as a whole, and to defend and to protect and to show, and that cause people to, demand, respect. We're causing them to respect us. You ain't gotta like me, but you're gonna respect me. When you think about even the women's suffrage movement that was spearheaded by Black women, and then white women, got involved. But then once, certain rights were going to be given to Black men, these women were really willing to give up their rights to vote and their rights to autonomy, so that Black men couldn't have some of the benefits that they would have, which is weird. Because it's about humanity. And again, race is a made up construct, right? Shout out to Miss Trish, who says we all we got. But I thought about that because I thought about Tamika Mallory when she was spearheading the other movements that were in place. And it was a, collaboration, not just Black women, but white women too. But as soon as Farrakhan got in the story, then the white women turned their backs on her. Not the Black women, the white women. That's not to say that Black people don't, bow out and fold. But it's just interesting to see how far people are willing to go in this movement, which is plain and simple. It's not even for it's not for fame, it's not for fortune. It's just to maintain dignity and respect and freedom. This is what people are literally fighting for, and Black women have always spearheaded and been at the front line fighting for this, side by side with our soldiers, our Black men as well, and our children. And it's usually the young people who lead these things, because when you come of a certain age, you get to a big age, over 50, 60, 70, you kind of fall back from the streets, you know what I'm saying, as far as protesting in the streets and being, physically active. But you do have other ways that you contribute to these different movements. But I thought about that. And then I thought about, I watch The View faithfully, usually every week. And one of the co-hosts is on maternity leave. So they've been having revolving co-hosts. And it's usually been a MAGA person. They've had Elizabeth Hasselbeck, who was an old host on the show. They've had Chrisley, I can't think of her first name, but she's a daughter of the Chrisleys, the parents who were sent to jail for tax fraud and pardoned shortly thereafter. The president became president again. And she was on there. And, I always tell people I don't bang. It ain't about red or blue. It ain't because of blood for me. It's about my interests, And in politics, as it's been quoted by the late great Mr. Joe Madison, quoting a book, in politics, there are no permanent friends. There are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. So I follow where my interests lead me to. So it's not, if you happen to be, most of my interests lie in the Democratic strategy party, then that's where I'm going. Or if it's in the Republican and independent. I mean, in my heart, I'm independent, but I'm also not a dummy. I know that we have to be strategic when it comes to this whole political arena, right? We have to know and understand when we can win and when we can't. And if we know we cannot win with the minority vote in the independent party or whatever party we're supporting, then we might have to be a little bit more strategic and come together. And I've seen that with white women, even though their interests, I would think, would be to have autonomy over their bodies, meaning that if they have any type of reproductive issues, that they wouldn't have to get permission from a man, a white man in particular, to be able to do whatever they need to do over their body. So you would have thought that would have been a no-brainer for them to vote for a person that would, or for a party that would support them having autonomy and freedom over their bodies, but over 50%, 51, 52%, 2-3 times in a row. Once, of course, he lost, but twice, the majority of white women voted for the current president, who has come out and bragged about sexually molesting women, famous women in particular. These are his words. Name thousands, hundreds of thousands of times in the Epstein files, wants to take away women's rights and let the states be able to decide what rights they can have. And the list is long, just being disrespectful and not having respect for women. Surprisingly and shockingly to me, for white women to vote for that lets me further know that they support this system of what some people want to call being supreme over other people. They want to be supreme over everybody. And they've already, compartmentalized this by, race. Again, that was invented by white people. And then dividing us on class, dividing us based on whether we're male or female, based on how we identify, right? So we've had to do all of that. We've had to experience that and know that these people that are in power have no interest on women having the freedoms and the rights. Remember, women didn't, if I go over this is Women's History Month. So, we can highlight some of the great things that women have been able to have and achieve over time. But this country being run by wealthy white men has suppressed the woman's right to voting, again, to her autonomy over her body, to credit, to ownership, so many things. So I guess it should be surprising that that white women are voting majority for someone like that. Because as a woman, you would think that we would just come together for the rights of women, but you're willing to even give up your rights. And there was thinking of that one quote that says, you can, was it Lee Atwater? You can, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the highest black man, then basically, I'm paraphrasing, he'll let you do whatever you want. He'll even let you pick his pockets. So if you can convince people that they're better than you, no matter what, you missing teeth, living in a trailer, you broke, you don't have health insurance, you can't get subsidies to help you get through life, you can't afford childcare, you can't get a job, you're being laid off, whatever the situation is, as long as the powers that be convince you that you are better than these people, then you will vote against your own interests. And that's what I've seen more than 50% of white women do. So that's why this discussion is here. While we're having this discussion, I do want to shout out Women's History Month. If you guys don't know, in 1910 is when women here in the United States were allowed to wear pants. Now, let's not forget that white men, and I'm not saying that other cultures haven't done this, have worn dresses per se. That means they didn't have a slit up the middle and a seam. It was just free flowing. But women could not wear pants until 1910 here. In 1920, white women could vote. Not black women. Again, white women, they was with the black women when it came to feminism, up until the point where these laws and amendments would give certain people advantages they didn't think that they should have, and so they would not vote to support their own interests. So white women in the 20s could vote. In 1963, women gained equal paid rights, sort of, right? Because we still have that issue, right? Women are still not making the same amount of money as a man for the same job. And it's different based on your race. White women make more than black women, statistically. In 1965, black women could vote. So years later, decades later, then black women were able to vote. And of course, that included black men as well. In 1969, women were allowed to initiate divorce. Now, I think that's a very, very important question. I mean, not question, but topic to discuss, especially when I hear people romanticize the 60s, how the family stayed together and it was more unity and people had all these babies and the families were together. It wasn't as much divorce. Well, you have to put things into perspective. And that's why I say you always have to start the story at the beginning, right? And at the beginning of the story, women didn't have the right to divorce. Women didn't have the right to, spousal abuse, spousal rape, and spousal abuse was legal. You could not go to the police and say, my husband had sex with me against my will. They would laugh at you and be like, ha ha ha. It's the same way they laugh at men that go into the police station today and say, a woman raped me. Women couldn't own a home. They couldn't purchase businesses or cars or have credit cards. So there was an advantage, even though there was a lot of probably suffering involved in staying with someone who may have been abusive or just not right for you. Because that was the only way that you would be able to maintain some level of having a roof over your head and having some stability, is being with a man. So in 1972, birth control, women could get birth control without a man. So why would we ever need a man's permission to do what we need to do for our bodies? Just make it make sense. Why would we need a man's permission? That's all I'm saying. Why would we need a man's, especially considering that men don't even have a uterus, so they can't even walk in our shoes and understand whatever experiences we may be having. I'm just saying, something to think about. In 1973, women could choose to get an abortion legally. Prior to that, women were risking their lives to do so. So many different scenarios fall into play, and people love to throw their religion into this conversation, and that really bugs me, because if you know the truth about the American Christianity, you know that it was, mixed, diluted, and tampered with. It's not holy. And that it was, it's man's interpretation. I bring that back to the Supreme Court, for example. The law is there. What is written, but the interpretation of that is from someone who is not God. He is a man. He is a human. And so we know that we even back in the day had the slave Bible where, Black Africans were encouraged to obey their master. Okay. And here we are today. So, yeah, that is, crazy. And here we are again, now needing permission from a man, because there are men who are making these decisions for women as to if they can have an abortion or not. And people like to focus on, pro-life or pro-death, but you have to remember that the same people who say they're pro-life, and that's what they hide behind besides their religion, are people who also support the death penalty, who also do not fight for people who have been wrongfully convicted of crimes, who are cheering on a man who today has celebrated the death of a former FBI leader by saying he's glad he's dead, so he can't harm any more people, for a man who just caused a war that killed over 180 people. But you're pro-life and you think abortion is wrong and you're going to go to hell. And explain it all to me again. I'm confused about death and what you really think death really means, and how you make it okay here and not okay there, and then I'm supposed to just accept it and that's okay. But again, we're back to that. We're men, we're going to need the permission of man to do what's right with our bodies. Some women are dying on the operating table right now because their bodies can't hold the baby. And so in order for them to live, they have to do what is called an abortion, to remove that fetus that is not going to live outside of the womb and cannot live inside of the womb and is going to kill the woman. They would have to have an abortion to save that woman's life. And doctors are choosing not to save the woman's life because they don't want to lose their licenses, because in some states it is illegal. Okay, so when y'all fighting and voting for certain freedoms, this is what you're giving away. You're giving them full reign over a woman's body, and it's really, really sad. And you don't see too many rules and regulations on men, do you? Nah, ain't nobody telling them that they can't play with themselves. They're not telling them they got to keep it all in the sack. I'm just saying, yeah. In 1974, also, women were able to buy a home without a man. Think about that. In 1988, women were able to own their own businesses without a man. This is just in the 80s, y'all. This is just in the 80s. And then in 1994, women gained legal protection against domestic abuse and marital abuse. So it wasn't until 1994. So maybe the divorce rate went up when women were able to make their own money, have their own business, have their own credit, divorce people that were beating their ass or whatever the situation may have been, because we know a lot of these papas was a Rolling Stone. They had whole families down the street. You know what I'm saying? When a woman had to still deal with this. So yeah, they were just able in 1994 legally to, have protections against marital abuse and rape. And in 2022, we're back, like I repeated, we lost our constitutional rights as women to abortion. So this is Women History Month, and I definitely want to highlight that. Shout out to, I want to say Remarkable on YouTube, who is adding to the conversation, saying one of my job is as a political conversor. Am I reading that correctly? It's shocking and alarming how many people voted for such a flawed and bigoted system. It is. It's shocking because people that critical thinkers, just simple-minded thinking people, know and understand what's at stake, and they know and understand what their rights should be, and they know good from bad. So it's just weird to me. Again, over 52% of white women back to back voted for a man who don't like women. Don't like women, who's an adulteress. I mean, the list is long. The list is long. Yeah. And yes, you're right. Big Pharma wants to control us. And why? Because their Lord and Savior is money and power. And as long as we'll be sick and ill, they can make money. They can make money. You think about diabetes and how so many people have it because our country allows them to put all of this poisonous things into the food. They trust the FDA to tell them that it's good. And then you turn around and you have to spend all this money for a drug that only costs $2 a make for people who are diabetics. Under another administration, they were letting you know they had already rolled into effect discounted pharmaceuticals, but they were going to do even more in the present time in their leadership role. And the majority of white women voted against that. Voted against that. Why? Why would you pick this man who wants you to pay out of your pocket expensive fees for medicine, don't want you to have any rights, don't respect women? I mean, the list is so long. Never mind the fact that he's got 34 felonies. Never mind the fact that he's filed bankrupt 6 times, which caused other people to not get paid for the job they did. I mean, make it make sense. 52% of you white women. Yeah, pieces of she said. She's not shocked. I got to get a better word. I am kind of still like, wow. And so I want to get into that. I got a bunch of clips I'm going to get into and to kind of see what's the psyche of these women who vote against their own interests, And so I want to get into that. Again, so I was watching The View, and again, they had some crazy, wild MAGA women on there, and people wasn't feeling it. And you can't feel it when you have people on there where they're the women round table. They have different perspective, independents. They have Democrats. They have Republicans. And usually it's a pretty level-headed discussion amongst those who come from different parties having their opinion, not ignorant ass discussion as it had been with these MAGA people like Elizabeth Hasselbeck and some of the other white women that have come on the show, supporting a man who's in the Epstein files. Like the minute you start talking about he's in the Epstein file, they want to correct the record about him. Like, why would you even be defending him in any way, shape, or form? And then out the other side of your neck, you're saying, you're against, rape, you're against pornography and molestation. Like, why are you defending him though? Like, make it make sense. Because in my mind, what I've come to understand is it's not so much about defending him, but defending their movements. Like, by any means necessary, they are going to defend their movement. And I think you're going to hit the nail on the head, pieces of she. So I'm going to read what you have to say. She says her fathers, her uncles, cousins, etc., have been operating like that for years, all of their lives. It's a fact. History teaches us that. They have not gone anywhere and not disrupted the algorithms. They have caused havoc everywhere they've gone. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. What country, what continent did they ever land on where wars weren't started, where there wasn't chaos, where, just madness? Prove me wrong. Okay. So she said they're operating like that for years, all of their lives. So it's nothing new for them. It's their norm. Okay. I mean, enough said. It's their norm. This is what they know. But it's also, we could say that about a lot of things in life. Like we could say, when people say, you have toxic people in their life, in your life, and their excuse for being toxic is, that's just the way I am. Like, okay, that's your norm. That's what you come from. Your mother and father were toxic. Your family was toxic. You come from toxicity. And so that makes it okay. Like, you don't look around and see something non-toxic and go, maybe that's better. maybe I should try that. How do you get some of that? Like nothing turns on in your brain that says maybe I should try something different and see if that works. That's all I'm saying. Like when you start to do critical thinking, it's one thing to just be locked in a bubble and not know any different. You know better, you do better, right? At least you see something different. You say something, and then maybe you do the knowledge, right? I'm just saying. So yeah, so then Cheryl Underwood comes on The View. And if you guys aren't familiar with her, she's a Black woman, a comedian. She used to be one of the co-hosts on The Talk. One of my favorite lines she says that I do on the show sometimes, the opening, I say, how you doing? How your mama doing? Tell her I want my plate back. And she walks around with her purse everywhere like Aretha Franklin, like she would come on stage. And she's a Republican. I mean, she was Bush Jr.'s biggest cheerleader when he spearheaded us into a war. Yeah, when he sent us into that war, she thought he was top dog. She's former Army, I want to say, or at least military. She served her time, her tenure, however long she was there. But she still is a Republican, and you can tell the difference from a Republican versus a MAGA person. Because a MAGA person, they are dumb as rocks. They are dumb as rocks, and if they're not, they come off as that. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just calling a thing because having conversations with a person who says they're against DEI, and then you ask them what does DEI mean, and they don't know. They just say, well, it's Black people getting jobs over white people. No, that's not what it means. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what exactly do you have a problem with that? Why would you have a problem with that? Because if you think about things like affirmative action, the majority of people who benefit from DEI and affirmative action are white women. So why are you mad? Why would you want to get rid of that? Just so that all of your white sons and uncles and Pauls can have control, and you can just sit back and go back in time and just be controlled 100% by your white people. Shout out to Shantu's in the YouTube chat. Thank you for joining us. Hey there. Facts. Thank you. Is that what it is? Like, and then you know, MAGA people, when you ask them, when they say they're against Obamacare, and then you say, oh, really? And they say, yeah, I don't like Obamacare. Probably because he's Black. But then you say, well, do you like the Affordable Care Act? Yeah, I like the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. Obamacare is a slang term for the Affordable Care Act. So this is what I'm saying about MAGA. And y'all's president has already told you he loves the poorly educated. This is stuff he's literally said out his mouth. I'm not paraphrasing, that smart people don't like him. He loves the poorly educated. He can go and shoot somebody right on Fifth Avenue and they will still love him. And intelligent people don't like him. This is what he said. And these MAGA people are like, yeah. You know, without any health care, living in rural communities, in desert, food deserts, and not having access to emergency care. Make it make sense. Now, the white man, listen, I'm talking about white women today. So, you know, that's where I'm at on that. Because I'm really considering white men, you know, they're always going to have a level of privilege as long as they're in a position of power. But white women, you don't always have a level of privilege. Your privilege isn't always there. It's up there to a point that leads you to the lake. And then once you walk in, you die. Shout out to Sky Full of Elephants. I encourage y'all to go read that book. To me, it's a metaphor right now. As I'm describing it, maybe it's a metaphor for what these people do. They don't even know that they're committing, and it's not even political suicide. It's really killing them. You're really killing yourself. And that's what's really happening. It's creepy. So Cheryl Underwood gets on there, and she's Sunny Hostin, if you don't know, is one of the main hosts. And she's a Puerto Rican Black woman. She's very proud of saying that she's a Black woman and Puerto Rican, considering her mother's Puerto Rican and her father's Black. And she asked Cheryl Underwood the question that dates back to Cheryl Underwood being on the show To Talk. If you guys don't know, that show has been canceled. But on that show, her and Sharon Osbourne got into a heated discussion about race. And this all stemmed back from Morgan Pierce. If you guys don't know, he's some English guy who, you know, has a platform and, you know, talks about whatever he talks about. And at the time during this, when this issue came to the light and came to a heated discussion, it was during the time where Meghan Markle, who is the wife of the no longer Princess Diana's son, who removed himself from the the royal family. I think they still live in California. But anyways, she had did an interview with on Oprah Winfrey discussing. She had a documentary coming out too, and she had done an interview just saying how she, felt, she was being, if there was racism, that she was being racially discriminated against. And Pierce Morgan obviously didn't like the discussion. Meghan Markle was saying how something we do in the Black family, we look at the ears to see how dark they're gonna get, and they were looking at the baby's ears to see how dark the baby was gonna get, and she just really felt violated racially. And she said that she, suffered deeply, like mental health issues, because of the racism from the royal family. So Pierce Morgan, again, a host from the UK, he had something to say about it. He vehemently said that was not racism. That's what he said. That was not racism, and just went off on her and was just, saying, basically she's just a crybaby and that it wasn't racism. And Sharon Osbourne, which she admittedly says that Pierce Morgan is her friend, pushed back on that. And so she basically said, why are y'all saying he's racist? Because he said it's not racism. And they're like, huh? Like, because he's supporting racism. Like, that's how that works. If you're not denouncing racism, just like y'all want everybody that supports people who speak whatever think about anti-Semitism. Even when people aren't saying anti-Semitic thing, just to say something negatively about a Jewish person or the community will be considered anti-Semitism. And anyone who says, well, that's still my friend, is considered anti-Semitic as well. Well, not to compare the two, but just to give you some insight, because a lot of people like to say, they don't think they're doing it, but if other people do it, they can point it out. But when it's them, it's never them, right? They're just really narcissistic. But in this case, she got called out for it, like, hey, it is racism, and she said it's not. So let me see if I can get this clip up where Sharon Osbourne is having a discussion. I won't play all of it, but she's having a discussion with her cast, the other co-hosts, about this particular topic. And we'll just play what she has to say. If that doesn't play, I do have the audio as well, because y'all know how this YouTube might be set up. So let's see. So this clip should be my first one. Let's see if I get it right. And again, this is from the talk, and they're having a conversation about, no, that's not it. No. So they're having a talk about, Sharon's, perspective on this not being racism, and that he wasn't being racist, and that, it was just a heated conversation. So let me see if I can try again to play it. And this is not coming up. I hate when that happens. Okay, we're going to try again. We'll see. So this is from the Daily Mail, and this is the interview that they're having. A conversation that they're having, again, Cheryl Underwood's included as well. And they're talking about her takeaway from the conversation. Let's see, this is not it. Okay, we're just going to not play it, it looks like. Let me try another way. So I'll just give you, I think we have it. Okay, I have it now. Here it goes. Yay. I'm sorry for the delay. I am also the host. I am the producer. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen so you guys can see it. You guys can hear it. Yeah, I'm going to put it up here. I don't want to see that, but we're coming to it. Okay. Did it come up? Oh, Lord.
What would you
Start it over
say
so
to
you guys can
people
hear it. I can hear it on
who
my
may
end.
feel that
From the beginning. Here we go.
while you're standing by your,
For your patience.
I really would like to know, because I've been knowing you for years. I've never seen anything come out of you other than If I don't know, I'm willing to learn. If it comes off a certain way, I stand corrected.
Right.
That's the only thing I've seen.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who while you're standing by your friend, it appears that you give validation or safe haven to something that he has uttered that is racist. Even if you don't agree, am I
One,
right?
I don't know. Tell me, what has he uttered that's racist?
Wednesday's episode of The Talk got intense as Cheryl Underwood confronted her co-host Sharon Osbourne for supporting Piers Morgan after he made controversial comments towards Meghan Markle following her sit-down interview with Oprah. Throughout the conversation, Sharon became very defensive over her friendship with Piers and even lashed out at Cheryl. Take a look.
I feel even like I'm about to be put in the electric chair because I have a friend who many people think is a racist, so that makes me a racist. And for me, at 68 years of age, to have to turn around and say, I ain't racist. What's it got to do with me? Okay, how can I be racist about anybody? How can I be racist about anybody or anything in my life? How can I?
Well,
Well, what?
We will be right
Well,
back.
what?
We have more topics, so don't go away.
And I think we should stop this. I will ask you again, Cheryl.
Yes.
I've been asking you during the break.
Right.
I'm asking you again. And don't try and cry, because if anyone should be crying, it should be me. This is the situation.
Yes.
You tell me where you have heard him say, educate me. Tell me when you have heard him say racist things. Educate me. Tell me.
It is not the exact words of racism. It's the implication and the reaction to it. To not want to address that because she is a Black woman and to try to dismiss it or to make it seem less than what it is. That's what makes it racist. But right now, I'm talking to a woman who I believe is my friend. And I don't want anybody here to watch this and say that we're attacking you for being racist. And for that, if I articulated
I think it's
anything,
too late. I think that seed's already sown.
but that is why I'm saying for me. I'm saying for me. I thought I was asking a question about the perception for other people. That's why I prefaced it with, I've never heard you utter anything racist, but I have felt that Piers was racist in his stance against Meghan Markle. And the last time he was on this show, I said as much. I said it when he was on this show.
And what was his answer to you?
He didn't feel that it was racist. He didn't feel that the racial statements that he was making were racist. But I was talking to him.
Okay, answer me this one, okay? Because
So
I don't know. I don't understand. If he doesn't like someone,
it goes on. She tries to bring up the argument that just because he doesn't like someone, and that doesn't mean that he's racist because he doesn't agree with the statement. And again, she missed the whole point. And she was saying everything with her entire chest, right? She was mad about the fact that they were saying it to associate yourself and to agree with him and say there was nothing wrong with him dismissing her feeling racism was an issue. I mean, she was mad about that. And to me, that's the world that we live in right now, right? You can see certain people do the most racist things, right? And they'll do it without any problem. But the minute you call them on it, when you literally call them racist, then you get what you just saw with Sharon Osbourne. So even when Cheryl was talking to her, she told her no tears. She didn't want to hear any tears, and that she basically, she didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to hear it. Let me see if I can get this clip to go as well, where she's rapping. She's speaking to that as well before we move on. But I just kind of wanted to kind of set the platform with some of the things that I'm hearing from white women and how they're addressing Black women. when we bring up the fact that we're dealing with racism. So let me see if I can pull this up now. Oh boy, here we go.
The talk returned today after a month-long hiatus.
It's time for an episode of The Talk that will be unlike any other we've had before.
The show went dark all March 10th.
You say racist things.
It was later announced that Sharon Osbourne would not be returning to the daytime talk show.
During our break, Sharon decided to leave the talk. We need to process the events of that day and what happened since so we can get to the healing.
Cheryl Underwood addressed the situation today.
What was most striking was told, "Don't you cry." Well, I'm not tearing up because you've hurt me or I want some sympathy. I'm tearing up because I have to restrain that. Because if I had responded, then I would have been the angry Black woman. And I think I'm talking to my friend, somebody I can trust.
Co-host Elaine Welteroth remembered trying to keep her cool.
We had to stay composed in that situation, even in the face of someone who was A, not listening, and B, who went off the rails into that.
Elizabeth Wagmeister is a senior correspondent at Variety.
By having Cheryl at the forefront of this issue, that really signals that the executives and that the producers at the top are all really rallying behind Cheryl, who of course was the one who was really embroiled head on with Sharon Osbourne.
We must have this conversation, no matter how.
And so since then, she was asked on the View. Cheryl was asked on the View, are they friends? And she, you know, Cheryl still says she did consider a friend and did try to reach out to her, and that I just thought that was crazy. But the overall thing, what really, really moved me was, if you guys don't know, Joy Behar, who she considered herself an Italian woman, sitting on the panel, said, "Why do white people think they can tell Black people when they're experiencing racism?" And I said, "Oh, I consider Joy Behar an ally. I consider her an ally. I think that she rolls with us. I think that she would go to the very end. I don't think that she would use what would be perceived as her privilege, her white skin, to bow out of a situation or vote against her interests. I definitely would not think that she would vote for with the other 52% of women, white women, who did that. So just thinking of that as well. So let me get into the chat and hear and read some of the comments here as well. So Shanta Jackson's in the chat, and she says, however, maybe I should start from the first one. She says, "I'm late." She says, "I'm late, so excuse me if I'm a little off topic. My response is that while women can be and have been allies throughout history, but of course, many can't be trusted." Yeah, you right on time. You right on time. She says, "Remember that there were white abolitionists and other white people who were murdered for their beliefs against slavery and segregation. That is true." She's adding again, however, you don't know who to trust these days, because our society has tolerated and allowed hate for so long. Even some of our own people hate themselves and will side with the racists. Okay. You listen, no lies detected there. No lies detected there. And that's the other thing. We've had white allies. We've had white allies. Shout out to Jim. If you guys don't know, John Brown, back in the 1800s. Look, back in the 1800s. I'm from the 1900s, but back in the 1800s, there was a John Brown who was a white ally. He started his activism. He started his activism in 1850, and less than 10 years later, he was dead. He was hanged for his fight to abolish slavery. That's exactly what he was trying to do. And yeah, that was crazy. Another thing here, you guys, I have a lot of notes, and for some reason they are lost in this. Yeah, I don't know what happened to my notes, but John Brown is one of the examples of someone who spearheaded. He's even being said that he spearheaded the civil rights, the Civil War, excuse me, because that he was fighting vehemently to free people from slavery, Black and Africans from slavery. And he was captured by the leader of the Confederacy. He was hanged initially. He was hanged. So John Brown is one of the white allies who saw it through. He did not bow out when he saw that death was hanging over his head. He continued on, and so though he's one of the people that we can definitely give a big up to, I would encourage you guys to read more about him, Mr. John Brown. Also, our allies have been white women. One of the women who stand out to me, or a white woman being an ally, is Jane Elliott. If you guys aren't familiar with Jane Elliott, she is one person I think would ride it out to the end, because she has been riding it out. She's in her 80s now, and if you guys aren't familiar with her, she's became popular as a school teacher when she did an experiment in her class, was a blue eye, brown eye experiment. If you guys aren't familiar with that, that story was where she divided the class up based on the color of their eyes and told one group of people that you treat this group of people with this color eyes this way, and you treat this group of people with this color eyes that way. And it was a very traumatizing and eye-open experience, okay? Yes, Cousin Jane is the truth. She is. Pieces that she said, white allies are far and few between. How does one take the time out to figure out what side they are on? Well, we can look at that. We got to look at their resume. We got to look at their activity. They can't be their mouth, and they can't be new to this. They got to be true to this. They have to be been in this game for a minute. That's how I see it. I think, people like Jane Elliott have shown and proven who she is. A person like John Brown, who literally went to war and ultimately became a martyr for the freedom. He would have been cool. He was a white guy. He would have been cool. Just living his white life and drinking his water and minding his business and knowing there's nothing I can do. They're going to kill me. But instead, he took his life on. There were even some Black people, when I think about the story of John Brown, there were even Black people who would not join him in this war that he wanted to set, this fight that he wanted to initiate, because they was like, nah, that's a losing battle, bro. But you do you, boo. Good luck with that. And so, I think about people like that, but I just wonder why there's so many white women who would rather have their white men rule over not just us, other people, but even them, rather than support equality, freedom, and justice for all people. That's what really throws me off. What holds you back? And then I think about the Mothers of Confederacy. You guys aren't familiar with them. They are women who, after 1865, I want to say maybe 20 years later, they, not the men, not the sons, but actually the women formulated a group, which is what we see manifesting here today in life. They formulated a group. It's the Daughters of Confederacy, the Daughters of Confederacy. They formulated a group to, get their propaganda out into everywhere, to make the Confederacy look like they were the good guys, right? Remember, the Confederacy went against the United States, so that would actually make them a threat, an imminent threat to the country and domestic terrorists. Mind you, we have statues of the leaders of the Confederacy and those who fought in that war all over. We have schools named for them where our kids attend, and they are still respected and honored, even though they committed treason. Sounds familiar? But anyways, the Daughters of Confederacy are some of the people who wanted to continue on letting white men have power, which meant that they, again, the type of power that white men want takes even power away from the white woman. It's not like they're saying, we're going to give you all of your rights, but everybody else can't have rights. They're saying, we're going to take away some of your rights too, but we'll still have the power. You're still our skin color, so you'll have some privileges, right? The United States Daughters of Confederacy is called the UDC. It's a neo-Confederate hereditary association for female descendants of the Confederate Civil War soldiers. It was founded in 1894 in Nashville, Tennessee by Carolyn Meriwether Goudet and Anna Davenport Rains. It aims to it says to venerate the memory of those who served in the Confederacy Armed Force of Government. It says the organization's primary, what their primary is to memorialize, to have the memory of those who served in the Confederate in a positive light, basically have a positive memory of them in the armed forces of government. The organization, they want to correct history, and I'm putting up air quotes. They want to correct history of the Confederacy, and they call them the indigent Confederate widows, and they go around, telling people that the Confederacy was fought for states' rights and not to maintain slavery. And I've heard it all before. And they've been doing this again. They're still at it. They're still doing it, and they've been influential, especially mainly in the South. And they fight to make sure these statues stay up. These statues are erected where they're not. They support that. They support whatever that Confederacy is about. They support that. So we know that what percentage of them, we know that they were part of that 52% as well. And then there's Moms for Liberty. Now they're a newer group, and I think it's important that we mention those people as well. And I'm bringing up these groups because when I'm asking the question, how do 52% of white women vote against their own interests? And what are they missing? And why are they allowing themselves to be just dumbed down and stay dumb and just vote against their interests? Well, it's because of organizations such as the Daughters of Confederacy and Moms for Liberty, if you're not familiar with them. Now, they have spread their whole, and their nonprofit. Moms for Liberty is a nonprofit organization, so they may be receiving our tax dollars to continue on with their mission. And if you're not familiar with their mission, it is to basically, they actually, they did this. This is how new it is. Moms for Liberty came into act in response to the COVID-19 school policies, such as mask and vaccine mandates, and it quickly expanded its focus to include opposition to what considered the woke indoctrination in schools. So they campaign all over the country. They have, they set up shop in at least 45 states. I know they're not in Montana, New Mexico, or Kansas, but their website says they set up shop in at least 45 states and the 50 here in the United States. And what they're basically doing is they're campaigning against the LGBTQ and inclusive education. They're going for schools specifically, critical race theory, and discussions of race and ethnicity. These are the kind of things they're trying to get omitted from school. And if you guys have been paying attention, they've been being quite successful, and they've only been around not very long, but since COVID, since the pandemic. They also are against books addressing gender and sexuality in school libraries. They're against social and emotional learning programs. The group also endorses candidates for school boards. I just wanted that to sink in. They endorse candidates for school boards. So that means they're getting their nonprofit money together, and they're putting their money behind people who will support this agenda, okay? And other public offices, not just school boards, and other people who align with their views, and it uses social media to influence local education policy. So maybe this 52% or a portion or percentage of these people who are voting against their interests are listening to people like the Moms for Liberties and the Daughters of the Confederates. And listen, you guys, you hear people say all the time that we need to be civically engaged. We need to be on the school boards. We need to go to school board meetings. They are going to school board meetings. As a matter of fact, at least two of the active members, they would be along the lines of being founders or whatnot. Two of these actual board members, key board members, were on the school board. So they were making decisions. They were voting yay or nay in the interest of what they wanted to be disseminated in public schools. So for those people who think, oh, there's no racism, for those people who think that, that stuff is behind us, there are people who are actively still doing what they've been doing since the beginning of time, is doing revisionist history, rewashing the truth. They're washing the truth about history. They're omitting the truth. And then they're putting in things that aren't true. And they're teaching, they're feeding this to not just their children, because they're getting it at home, but then they're going into the school and feeding it to our children too. And they are I want to say coalition. They're a community of women. They go all over the country. They go to school board meetings. They protest against the books. There's a reason why a lot of books have been banned, not from just schools, but even jails. So these are these people. So maybe these white women who may smile in our faces and say that they, support at the bare minimum feminism, they will turn their backs on their own interests because they have an overall agenda for the white man. They, by any means necessary, they need their sons and their grandsons and their fathers and those men that are coming, that have come before them, that are coming after them to maintain power, even if that means that they relinquish their power. They have over 285 chapters. They have over 115,000 members, okay? And they mostly go to suburban areas and they meet with these soccer moms and these women who ain't got nothing else to do. And they have these board meetings. They talk school board politics and they get a lot of media attention. And they are very effective. And again, they've only been around since 2020 per se. During the pandemic, they formulated this, okay? So some of the controversies again with the daughters for the mothers of Liberty is that basically because they do racist things, they do sexist things. I mean, they're discriminatory, have discriminatory acts. They want to omit anything that isn't white centered, and in public schools where everybody's tax dollars are contributed to it, which makes it so bad. So the organization, as described again as a far right conservative populist. And some of the things that they've been reportedly done, again, this is Moms for Liberty. They're considered a government extremist group. They're harassing teachers and school officials. Okay, so they out here wilding out. You know what I'm saying? They out here wilding out. And of course, they're deepening the division amongst parents because, when you got dumb people, the poorly educated, not really knowing and understanding the importance. They don't even know what critical race theory is, CRT. Critical race theory is not even taught in school, not in grade school, not in high school. It is taught at a high level in college, okay? You literally have to pay to get this education. It's not even taught in these schools, but they're going into public schools, K through 12, and saying, we have to get rid of critical race theory. And all of the other dumb people who are in positions of power are saying, yeah. And then they just making up what critical race theory is, which has to just say black, gay, or anything they're against, right? And they omit it, anything that makes white people look like they did something bad in life. And it promotes book bans. That's what they're doing. They're promoting book bans across the board. Let me get back into this chat, which looks very interesting. White allies are few and far in between. Pieces of she is saying there are many white people who mean right and in their hearts want to do right. If 10,000 snakes were coming down that aisle right now and I had a door that I could shut and in that 10,000, 1,000 snakes, hold on, there were 1,000 rattlesnakes. Yeah. So let me try to, 1,000 rattlesnakes didn't want to bite me. I knew it. Okay. So anyway, so hoping that the 1,000 get together and form a shield. Okay, so I will try to articulate what she's trying to say, but she's closing, she's quoting Muhammad Ali, if you guys know that quote about the snakes. Erica Kirk, she says, yesterday, Erica Kirk, and again, this is pieces of she, and the Nevada governor, Joe Lombardo, helped cut the ribbon Thursday on Turning Point USA's new Las Vegas headquarters. What? It's a storefront near Sunset Road in Decatur Boulevard. Are you kidding me? I did not know that. When Charlie Kirk was killed, the Sunset Station had a whole memorial. All you saw was his big face all over their marquee in front of the Sunset Station. So I'm not surprised, but y'all, please vote for Aaron Ford here in Nevada in the primaries. Please vote for Aaron Ford. We need Joe Lombardo out of here. He is a Trump supporter. And that's the other thing. People who support Trump, I say, are racist. Now, I know Black people can't be racist, but as a white person, if you can smile in my face and tell me you voted for this man, I know that you're a racist because you cannot tell me that man is not racist. He said racist things. He's done racist things. He continues to be a racist person. Okay, so if you're telling me that you support this man and you're a MAGA, you are racist, and you, in fact, are just my enemy. And if you're a Black person that have supported this, then we know for sure that you are lost. You are definitely deaf, dumb, and blind. And I'm not trying to bring y'all back. I'm really with those who have said that they're not trying to go and what's the word, transform people who don't believe fat meat is greasy, or who like being racist, or who like all this drama that's going on and think that this president is not an issue. I'm not trying to go and convert them. I go on over there and stay over there, and don't try to come back. There's some of them that be trying to come back. We even got MGT, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a current representative in the House, and she's crying. She's talking a good game, though. She's talking like we be talking, but you still can't come to the cookout, honey, because you are the reason why we're in this situation. You contributed to this, you 52%. Now that somehow the light has come on, and the light came on for her because this man gave you the middle finger and let you know, again, he doesn't like women. He don't respect nobody. He don't respect himself. Make it make sense. So I'm not trying to convert anybody who thinks that this is okay or thought it was okay, who voted for this twice or maybe even 3 times. I don't feel sorry for you. I'm not trying to get your interest. The people my interest is for the 90 million that didn't vote, because that is the highest voting demographic. The people who did not vote, we could have took a few thousand, we didn't need too many of those extra people to get their vote. Even if the independents had just voted Democrat, because the independent candidate could not win. I mean, it was obvious if you know numbers. If they would have just put their vote in the Democratic pot just to save democracy, we could have won. But the people that I would spend my time trying to educate and understand what's really happening, because I think a lot of those people who didn't vote really don't understand what's going on, and sometimes people just have to feel it. Those are the people that I would be trying to go for and encourage to vote. But for those who, and already showed me who they are, I believe you, and I'm good on it. Yeah, so, big ups to Cheryl Underwood, big ups to Joy Behar, who, spoke up and stood up, and I think she's one of our allies too. I know there was other clips that I wanted to play, but I really just wanted to touch on this subject, not too much, spend too much time on it, but I definitely wanted to just food for thought, like, why are these white women voting against their interests? And the summary is that anybody who's voting for this so-called Republican MAGA party, because that's what it's become, the MAGA party, they are upholding what people want to be supreme. They're upholding what some white people want to be supreme as themselves. And that's just what it is. And if that's what you go for, we're not on the same team. We are not on the same team. And that's just what it is. If you guys didn't know, today marks the anniversary of the Selma Montgomery March that began March 21st and ended in the 25th of 1965. That was right around the time we got our Voting Rights Act, right? So the Selma to Montgomery March was led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thousands of demonstrators began the third and final officially sanctioned 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery. I do 3 miles and I'll be done. Okay. Alabama, they went from Montgomery to Alabama to demand voting rights. And this is according to history.com, and protected by federal troops. They did this. And they reached Montgomery 4 days later, leading directly to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So big ups to those people. Let me go ahead and just go ahead and clap for that. I just find it interesting with people that have something to say about anything that is center. We have Black awards, we have Black History Month, we speak Black excellence, we talk directly to Black. It's no different from any other thing that we discuss, that we talk about in reference to pretty much putting focus on a particular subject matter. You see that when we talk about health, when we talk about cancer. One of the guest co-hosts on The View, she kept throwing in dog whistles. They weren't talking about these things, but she was using these words because, again, the poorly educated, you got to keep programming them. You got to keep feeding them mush so that their brain remains just mush, keep feeding them the BS because nothing's going to grow from it, and they're just going to follow you. So she would be saying things like Black Lives Matter. This is Alyssa Halfabeth. And we like, no, all lives matter. And we're like, where did that come from? You just like got Tourette or what? You just all lives matter. And just using dog whistles and saying cold words that we know are triggering. And it's saying that we don't care about Black lives. That's basically what you're saying. Because when we talk about things like cancer, we talk about other situations in life, nobody's saying when we talk about throat cancer, oh, what about brain cancer? Brain cancer matter. All cancers matter. That goes without saying. And it's the same thing when all of the Black things that we put a title on, we put Black in front of it because we live in a country where it was built to accommodate white people. After they stole it and made it their own, they just pushed everybody else out and made it white. So when you see Make America Great Again, that's what they're saying, make America white again. They don't like all of this. They don't like the Super Bowl. They don't like how the Super Bowl is going down. Okay. But I just want people to just when you think critically and understand how this country has been so white, when you think about when they say, for example, pantyhose, it's a nude color. What color is that? Is it dark black? Because some people I know, when they're nude, all I see is chocolate. But no, nude we've been conditioned to see nude as being a peach pale color, which represents white. How is that nude? You're not the only skin tone here in the United States or globally or in the world. But these are the kind of things that we've been conditioned to see ourselves as less than and to minimize ourselves. So that's why Black goes at the front of whatever we're introducing when it comes to us. Even with Band-Aids, remember you used to go pick up a Band-Aid and it was nude? Like no Band-Aid matched your skin color. It kind of reminds me of, years ago, one of my co-workers who retired, but one year she got me a beautiful mug I still have to this day, and I take it wherever I go. I fill it with whatever I can. And it had my name on it. My entire life, nothing ever had my name on it, because for many of us, especially if you're a Black person, you can't go into a store, and get something monogrammed. You know how you would go into the store and, you see a name, Susie, Mike, the common names are there, but a name like LaToya, you're not going to see. And so it's the same thing with Black, growing up, when we saw Black people on TV, it was an event. Like we glued ourselves to the TV because it wasn't normal. We weren't used to seeing that. And I think that is something that I think white women have not sat in and thought about. They've always just sat in, and I'm not saying all white women, because, there's some down ones out there. I mentioned a couple. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying for real, because they may even think like Sharon Osbourne, she was saying what she said with her entire chest, was let you know she believed that she was not racist. She's like, teach me and educate me, but she's yelling and she's like, teach me and how, but she wasn't trying to learn. She was only trying to defend herself and not understand how things can be racist. How I talked about how people big up George Washington or even Abraham Lincoln, or how you have a whole president saying, oh, in 1765, we were free from tyranny from the other country. And I'm thinking in 1765, yeah, we were still enslaved. So how does your brain actually work? How do you, what's happening here? How do you actually think? That's what I think goes on in the minds of people who don't think they're racist, or who think that the way that they vote is not an act of racism or an act of trying to maintain supremacy over people, or get supremacy over people. I think they've just been so programmed and conditioned. And then I still hold them accountable, because have you took the time to learn? Have you took the time to see Jane Elliott? She talks about that as well. Like she did some event with her kids back in the day when she did the blue eye, brown eyed experiment, where she was highlighting the indigenous people. Those are the original people who were here before they, were taken from their land and put into what they say is a sovereign land, and, just did them bad, basically. Short story, long story short. She got moccasins for the kids, and she said that was symbolism. She said you really don't really understand what a person experiences until you walk into their shoes. And so she wanted her students to walk in these moccasins symbolically to represent that you live this life, but this is what they experience. Now you understand? You feel me? When we say you feel me, we mean do you understand what the experiences is? Is it coming through? Is it in your soul? Is it in your spirit? Remarkable says all lives matter was a weapon used to gaslight, of course, us and minimize the trauma we have experienced. Facts, facts. And that is a formula, that is a system, that is intentional. It's always been the formula, it's always been a system, it's always been intentional. I also want to play another clip. I know we're going to be wrapping it up shortly, but it's Ashley Barones. If you guys aren't familiar with her, she does a lot of history. History segments on Instagram. You can also follow her on YouTube. But she talks about performative allyship. So that's another thing to think about. We have people who say they ride with us, but she calls it performative allyship. So let me go ahead and play that because I love the way she explained it much better than I think I can. But I just want to add to that her perspective as well. And let's see, we're going to push play. I'm the producer too.
I want to talk to you about a very specific type of woman. She has the yard sign. She voted for Kamala. She cried on election. She posted the black square in 2020. She called herself an ally, just not in a way she's willing to see. So clear who we're talking about. Because white women is not one thing. The majority of white women have voted Republican in every presidential election, at least the year, and that includes 24. White liberal woman is a specific subset, college-educated, urban, feminist identity, progressive politics. She shows up to the marches, she follows the right accounts, she knows the vocabulary, and she genuinely believes that that makes her different. And that belief is exactly the problem. This is not a new character. She's been here before. In 1866, Black women and white women built the suffrage coalition together, like side by side. Then the 15th Amendment came, giving Black men the right to vote, but not women. White suffragists didn't just split from the coalition. They turned. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton began making openly racist arguments, saying that educated white women deserved the vote more than formerly enslaved men. The coalition that Black women helped build was now being used against them. Black women kept organizing anyway. They built the National Association of Colored Women in 1896, kept fighting for voting rights, labor rights, anti-lynching legislation, like all of it, all at the same time. Then 1920, the 19th Amendment passed. White women celebrated. Black women in the South were still being turned away from the polls by literacy tests, poll taxes, and the threat of violence. Now, when they reached out to those same suffrage organizations that they helped build, those organizations said it was a race issue. It wasn't their problem. They got their win and they closed the door. Every single time it's the same structure. Black women do the work inside a coalition. The coalition wins, and Black women are left out of the outcome. And the white women in those coalitions, the progressive ones, the ones who believed in the cause, they accepted that every time. Now, here's where it gets specific. McKinsey and Lean In did a study. More than 80% of white women said they consider themselves allies to women of color at work. Only 40% had ever spoken out against racism when they witnessed it at work. 8 in 10 called themselves allies. Less than half acted like it. That gap has a name in academic research. Performative allyship, defined as easy, costless actions, motivated primarily by the desire to feel like one of the good ones. The yard sign, the black square. The march that felt meaningful but changed nothing structurally. Actions that served the ally's conscience more than the people the ally claims to support. And here's the part that doesn't make it into the conversation enough. A white liberal woman can hold every correct opinion about reproductive rights, climate, and gun control, and still choose a neighborhood because of its school district, knowing exactly what the school district's demographics are. She can post about housing inequality and participate in gentrification. She can say Black Lives Matter and then turn around and call the police. She can vote blue in every election and still cross the street. The research is consistent on this, right? Progressive racial beliefs and racially segregating behavior can exist in the same person at the same time without ever having to reconcile them, because she never has to. Nothing in her life has ever required it. So here's what the evidence shows. In 2024, Black women delivered 92% of their vote to Kamala Harris. 52% of white women voted for Trump. And when Black women said we were stepping back and protecting our peace, withdrawing from political organizing, some of those same liberal white women asked why. Why are you stepping back? We need you. This is not the time. And that question, that particular question, is the most honest thing that liberal white women have said in years, because it revealed what the relationship actually is, right? Not sisterhood, not solidarity, utility. Black women have been the most reliable progressive voting bloc in this country for over a century. We've showed up for movements that didn't show up for us, for coalitions that celebrated the win and left us outside. The white liberal woman is not the same as a white conservative woman. That much is true. But different is not the same as innocent either. You can be on the right side of history in your politics, and the wrong side of it in every choice that actually costs you something. The yard sign doesn't override the school district. The march doesn't override the mortgage. The black square doesn't override what you did or didn't do. In every room where Black women weren't watching. That's not allyship. That's aesthetics. And Black women have known the difference for a very long time.
I think she said that very well. And to support your statement, Marmac, who's saying, I really don't believe white allies exist. If we were to watch these so-called allies long enough, they'll show their true colors.
Your pancreas
I don't
can
think you said
reboot that
anything. I don't think you said anything that ain't true. And yeah, she piggybacked on that. And it just amazes me. But I think, through it all, when I think about it 100%, at the end of the day, for the hand of those who really ride or die for freedom and justice, equality for all people, y'all are real MVPs. John Brown, again, Jane Elliott. I can't even. I'm gonna put Tina Marie in there. Rest in heaven. But I know my girl. She would have rolled it out. Tina Marie. I wanted to open up with this too, and I didn't say this, but the question is, what is white though? We understand what Black is, right? Black is the global majority. Anything that does not identify with whiteness. But what is it to be white? Because you think about people who appear to what we've classified as white, just having white skin and stringy hair. Yes, Tina Marie, baby, Tina Marie. When we think about that, then we understand what white is, appearance-wise, because they made it about appearance. I'm listening to so many people talk about race and how race was developed, even tribally, just sidebar, when I've heard people talk about how, people will bring up the fact that even in the concept of Africans sold other Africans into slavery. And there was a person who interjected to add to the conversation and say that Africans didn't look at humans in a racial way. They were tribal. So they were just across the board human, not making it right or wrong, but white people literally went looking for people who looked a certain way to bring them to the continent and force them to work for them for generations and generations, for centuries and centuries. So that's the difference. Black people have never looked upon each other racially. It's always been culturally. But what is white? What is white? If a person says they're Irish, does that mean you're white? Because you could be born in Ireland and look like me, or Idris. What is it, Idris Elba? Somebody, you know what I'm saying? It's Flavor Flav. You know what I'm saying? So what is white? It's just a commodity. It's something for people who have been sold on an identity. If you fit the description, then you cling on to that because you know and understand the privilege of it, because what was invented by those who subscribe to being white, who claim whiteness. Like, if you tell me you're white, that doesn't tell me where you're from. If I say I'm Black, I'm from all over. We are the global majority. We got Blacks on every continent. We Black everywhere we go. Because a person is born in Jamaica, if he comes here to the United States, are they gonna say, oh, he's not Black? They're gonna say he's a Jamaican Black. If a person comes from the continent of Africa to the United States, are they gonna say, oh, he's not Black? He's an African Black. If he comes from the UK with his Black skin to the United States, they're not gonna say, oh, he's not Black. He's European Black. And that's what it's been. But when we look at white people, we can't say, oh, we won't say he's Irish white. What is white? Once people get into their heads and understand what it is that they're subscribing to, which in my mind has become just an evil DNA. I'm not being racial here. I'm talking about the spirit of those who invented racism. It's an evil DNA of a person who wants to pass along control and tyranny and devilishment and just power, monetary gain. I mean, you really, really think about this. There are people literally going all over the earth, stealing land, stealing resources, taking it from people and claiming it as their own and giving them the middle finger. You got people starving out Cubans, which we would consider Black, starving out Cubans because they will not lay down. They will not get down and they will not lay down. Shout out to state property. That is what's happening. Marmac is saying that, yeah, to be white is an American Caucasian, okay? Or a non-colored person who share the American white ideology. Now that's okay. So you said what I was trying to say. I appreciate you for it. You said a non-colored person who share the same white ideology. So that's what white is to me. Because we can look at a Black person within our culture. We can look at them and call them Black, but they white as hell, right? Because they share that ideology. They walk around with the MAGA hat. They support what this country is doing right now. They have no problem with it, and they hate Black women and their children, and that I would consider them white too. So I like that, a non-colored person who shares the American white ideology. Back to the white ideology, it's not about anything. It's not about spices. It's not about music. It's not about religion. It's not about spirituality. It's not about culture. It's not about food. It's not about family. It's not about education. It's not about science. It's not about creativity. It's not about our ancestors. White is just a description of a people that have commoditized, if that's a word it is today, okay, commoditized themselves and have used they have bullied people into submission. They have bullied people into oppression. They have bullied people into being marginalized, okay? That's what that white, plainly put, I love the way you said it, is an ideology. It's not a culture. Argue with me if you want to. If you subscribe to being white, tell me what it is. Tell me what it is and tell me that you're not subscribing to an ideology. Because who raises their hands and wants to be proud if you know the truth about what these so-called white people have done historically since the beginning of their time? Since the beginning of their time. This is Paul Weyrich, and I know we're about to wrap it up right quick, but I'll save that for later. I'll put Paul Weyrich in later, but he's one of the people from the Heritage Foundation who says that he doesn't want everybody to vote. He said when the majority of people vote, then the Republicans lose. And I just want to reiterate that to people. And then maybe we can just close out with with something I thought was interesting. This man is speaking on, and I picked this up from another person's Instagram page, but he's speaking on how the brain works and the mind. And so let me see what he's saying exactly. He says, the man is going to say the human brain cannot comprehend the negative. So I want to play this and just give you something to marinate on before we close out of here. He says the human brain cannot comprehend the negative. Did I say that correctly? Let me just look at it again. The human brain cannot comprehend the negative. Yes, I got it right. So here we go.
Things humans weren't meant to see.
The brain cannot comprehend the negative. It is incapable. Yes, it's true. I'll give you an example. You ready? Don't think of an elephant. You can't tell the human brain not to do something, right? And so what happens is we very often reinforce things when we put things in the negative, right? It's such a huge thing to convert things into the affirmative. You're supposed to do it with children as well. We're supposed to say, instead of saying to children, don't eat on the couch, we're supposed to say, eat at the table. Right? We tell people what we want them to do, not what we don't want to do.
Things human.
And I just liked his concept of it, because when I first saw the headline, it said the human brain can't comprehend the negative. I'm like, what does he mean? And then he said, don't think of an elephant. And what's the first thing all of us did? If I tell you, don't think of an elephant, the first thing that comes in your mind is an elephant. Okay. And you have to force yourself not to think about that. And he used that to say that we can make a path for ourselves if we focus on what it is that we're trying to get to. And he used, the child as an example, right? And I do that, it's to me, it's like a reverse psychology thing. Instead of telling a kid, don't touch the stove, we tell them, put a glove on before you touch the stove. You give them other options, because now your brain has said, she said, don't touch the stove. So now your brain says, I have to do that. Weird, right? I mean, people have told me never to try crack, and I haven't. So I'm not saying it's, absolute. Okay. I'm just saying it's something to think about. Food for thought. All right. So thank you guys for engaging me today. I so appreciate you. And again, I just wanted to kind of just think about a few things and just bring some things to light. And hopefully for those who consider themselves allies to people who are marginalized and oppressed, understand that you may not understand what the experience is for those who are, but you can learn, and you cannot, you don't have to insert yourself in something that you don't understand. Because for the many examples that we've given, for some people, you just see the world differently because it hasn't affected you. But it doesn't hurt to learn more and then understand who you are and who other people are, and why it's important that good people come together, because those who you may be trying to keep at the head are going to be the demise of not only them, but to you too, because it will be destroyed eventually. So again, I got to give my thank you. So let me give my applause to you guys for watching, chatting. It's always love and respect. I appreciate y'all. Till next Saturday. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.